Well, if you love the 1930s romance crime movies, I'm telling you, you're going to love my next author and his book. It's called Even a Pandemic Can't Stop Love and Murder by A.E.S. O'Neill. This is the first of three-book series, and we want to bring Alfred in right now. Alfred, welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good to see you.
Oh, I am so excited because there's so many surprises along the way. But first of all, tell us, what is the book generally about?
Thank you very much for your time and the
Yeah.
question. So the book is actually more simple than it seems. It is really about the balance of a crime and a love story. And it's all set in the dark castle, the foreboding atmosphere of the pandemic. Yes, the
Mm.
pandemic's the lead word, but the pandemic is not the lead point. The pandemic provides the atmosphere to show human resilience in the face of good and evil. And love and redemption is part of that too. So these to me are very emotional human attributes caught inside of a crime story. And I think it has some nice twists back to your 1930s references.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's based on a true mob bank robbery, right?
Yes, I was some years ago. My father, as one might see on my website, evenapandemic.com, that my father spent most of his life as a minor league character in the mob. And yes, people always say, well, you're Irish. They don't have Irish people in the mob. Well, no, money is green. So it's really, culture does not matter. So he was in that. And through his experiences, he was running a crew of people who were cleaning out asbestos illegally from a mob bank. And one of his crew stole something from that bank, not knowing it was a mob bank. And let's just say all hell broke loose. So for the next 7 days, as he told me, the mob, the hitman, the FBI, local county police, as well as just the banks, as well as him, cruised around North Jersey looking for what was stolen. They found it, but it was not a good ending.
Oh man, and this story was so impactful. I mean, being told the story, that was the inspiration for you to go ahead and put this on paper.
Yes, it was, and and also the combination of the background, my childhood background, my father, who I was his only son, and the same name, so there's a certain imprimatur there. He was very generous in his sharing the ideas, but was also very careful about not exposing too many elements. He did not want me to know too much, just enough to tell the story, and I think I've been very true to that and added to it.
So you were living in a true mob story as a child.
Yes, my life was had the dichotomy, which I think was kind of showing itself in the book, of a very blessed childhood of having a strong mother and grandparents, going to Quaker school for 12 years and getting imbued with those principles, and then meanwhile on the weekends and summertime, hanging out with my dad, who we would basically have to leave town every once in a while when there was a mob war, and I was told always before I walked to the apartment whether the phones were bugged or not. I was always told whether we were being followed that day or not. And in fact, on a couple of occasions, my father actually shook his tail and then turned around the store and introduced me to the FBI tail, much to the chagrin of the FBI agent trying to follow him. So, yes, that was my life.
Wow. There's something so rich and special about having lived the life and then writing about it. You just have inside knowledge
Mm.
that, hearing stories just can't convey. I want to ask you, what did you learn about yourself when you were writing this book? What's different from before you wrote this to after?
A wonderful question, because it was an evolution, and I assume we'll get to starting about how that generated itself, the birth of it. But what did I learn was it changed me because out of horrible loss and grieving over the last few years, as I tried to finish the book, as I chose to finish the book to honor someone I lost who I love very much, um, it became a love story. And it was a love
Mm.
story inside of a thriller. And it was not a typical love story because the love story has very little to do with the thriller until, of course, all wraps together towards the end. And it was a love story of two broken people trying to find love, redemption in the face of so much against them in the world. And to me, that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very relevant. So, if you're okay with this, I want to dive just a little bit deeper as to your inspiration for writing this because this bank robbery, apparently you kept talking about this with someone special and they kicked you in the butt to say, just write it. Would you share kind of that process a little bit?
Of course, and I would honor my wife. Uh, Bottom line is, she was a very pragmatic, straightforward person. And she once said to me, the only reason she could, as I said, well, how do you tolerate someone so loose like me and wild in the world? She said, as a CPA, I once had a dog that shed. So I was lucky that I followed that lovely dog. But the bottom line is, it was I looked at her, I said, my dad told me this story. I've been thinking about it. It's about 5 years ago. And she said, looked at me, she said, so if you want to talk about it, just write it. That was a blinding glimpse
Wow.
of the obvious, and I came through. But the hard part was why it evolved more to a love story was that I started as her husband and I ended it as a widow.
Oh,
And her
Alfred.
spirit very much is inside one of the characters in this book, though it's her secret spirit, as her daughter would tell me.
So she kind of lives on and continues through this.
Well, she was the one who really solidified my love of 1930s and 40s movies with the dynamic of the snappy patter, the idea that a horrible crime would occur, but yet they'd crack a joke. It was very much a Thin Man or that kind of
Yeah.
mold.
Hey
So
now,
yeah,
Bugsy, I don't know if
yeah, we
that
were
wouldn't
like,
be a good
he
idea.
almost, yeah, he almost killed us. Well, isn't that funny? Do you have a cigar? I mean, yeah.
It's a unique time for movies. What a cool thing to bring it into a modern day book and to be able to write that way. That's got to be really challenging.
Well, I did go to film school, and I was taught by a master producer from the 50s. So let's just say he grounded into us about plot and dialogue and structure. So I was lucky to have that discipline to rely on, though it was decades ago. It's still stuck with me.
Alfred, what do you want people to think or feel after they get done reading this? Are they going to laugh their way through it or cry their way through it or be like, "Oh, heck no." What are they going to experience?
I could never characterize what humans do. It could be all the above and much more. But I would say most likely what I have seen from the number of people who've read it and commented and wrote reviews, as well as the 2 professional reviews I've gotten, um, everybody seems to take something different. But there's 2 schools. One is those who love thrillers tend to focus very much on the crime and the let's just say the incredibly fastidious and polite psychotic killer. Another group focuses on love story and
Hmm.
finds the charm of the emerging love story and what happens at the end with them as they leave for the next story. Very engaging inside the thriller mode. So it's interesting. I asked somebody who I know, said, can you please write me the 10 lines you like the most in the book? Not a thriller reader, actually a Reiki healer of all things. And they wrote 10 lines that had nothing to do with the thriller. It had to do with all love. I asked that of a thriller reader. They wrote 10 lines that would have scared the heck out of you and made your hair rise. So it is about love and redemption, but it is about good and evil. And good and evil coexist. They do not
Mhm.
cancel each other out. They coexist.
It's so interesting because it sounds like people use their experiences from years, from their whole life, and pull out of this book. It's almost like it's a breathing document what they can relate to.
That's very well put. In fact, my editor, who once again did not want to do a thriller, but she said it kind of haunted her, but then she is now my editor forever because she loves it. Is working with me now in book 2. She actually gave it to a friend who was having trouble with her family, one of her siblings for decades. But there's a point in the book about sibling reconciliation and healing,
Mm.
which almost has nothing to do with the thriller. But she found so moving, she gave it to her friend and said, read this. This might give you some tips on how the healing could begin.
Wow. Alfred, as we start to wind down, share with us what's coming next, because I know this is book 1 of 3.
Very kind of you to ask. Yeah, so book 2, which is the cover, is already designed on the website, evenapandemic.com, as mentioned earlier, and I'm sure Suzanne will. That's called Even Climate Change Can't Stop Love and Murder. It's when they get relocated to Arizona. And the 3rd book is called Even Biowarfare Can't Stop Love and Murder. It takes place in the Queen Mary 2. So it's South Jersey, Sedona, Arizona, the QM2 crossing the Atlantic.
Love
And
it.
it is all within 2025, 2027.
Alfred, thank you so much for joining us. We got to wrap up here. Buy the book, leave a review. It means so much to the author, and even available for speaking opportunities. Go to the website for more information and to buy the book. Thanks for joining us, Alfred.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you, everybody out there. I really appreciate the time.